Okay.
So, dear Lemurian family, I invite you to close your eyes and take a deep breath, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. And allow a slow breathing rhythm to establish itself. And this reminds you that you are in a safe place. You are now joined with all of your brothers and sisters from Lemuria. And surrounding you is an entourage. And that entourage is filled with the lineage of your ancestors, the many ancestors that brought you here today. And in many cases, your ancestors also represent your past lives. And in your entourage is included the Star Mothers. They are here in joyful celebration as we now welcome the first message from Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. For those who would just listen to this channel and not know anything that has happened prior to it, you'd be unaware of truly what's going on here. My partner sits for the first time in front of those who have come in person, a quantity which is greater than 50, which has not been allowed for months. That's not necessarily the news. The news is that all of them sitting in the chairs have come on purpose. And the purpose they have, you might say, would vary from each one, for they come from many different countries and many regions, even of this country. But there's something inside, dear ones, that starts pushing about now in this new normal, in this 2020. It starts to push. And that push, dear ones, I'm going to identify for the first time as the new Lemuria. This push represents an awakening of core information. That core information was given seemingly so long ago, and yet the Akash of the human being, the memory of the lifetimes and the energies of the human being, are not linear. You say, well, how can we possibly remember something from that long ago? How is it possible? And that's the linear human deciding that it's tough. Because you can't remember that far back. Dear ones, the Akash doesn't work that way. It was yesterday to some of you. Not only that, to those sitting here in the chairs, to those listening, I will tell you, aren't you aware of the shift that's going on in you, around you? Don't some of you lay awake at night, or perhaps you're awakened at 3 a.m. and asking the question, what am I here for? Like it was something new. Like you felt something that was different than even a few months ago or last year or the year before. There are generations of light workers, of those who have esoterics and metaphysical beliefs, generations, who have been waiting for some kind of an earth ascension. It seems to be everywhere in that which would be those spiritual systems as well. Even they are waiting for something. A demarcation point where masters come back and the lights are turned on and and people ascend or whatever. Metaphysicians are not alone in this. They have expected this. When are we going to get our ascended earth? They ask. Let me tell you practically what this means. What you've all been waiting for. It doesn't matter what your belief system is. You see, if it's in all the belief systems, you know there's a core of validity there. What are you waiting for? The answer is now. Right now. And some of you are starting to feel it. It's not a time where suddenly dozens of human beings, if not thousands of human beings, will vanish and go to the skies. Dear ones, what's going to vanish is old consciousness. Burned up, you might say, by the nodes and the nulls, or starting to be changed because consciousness starts to awaken to higher dimensions, better thinking, compassion, kindness, different ways of putting things together. You have an election coming up. Stand by. You think it's crazy now? And what's going to show is dysfunction. Even more than it ever has before. How far can you tear things apart, dear ones, and not notice that you're dysfunctional? This is what's going on even in your Congress. How far apart can you get? How many names can you call each other? How many times can you walk out of the room because somebody has another opinion? And that's not what your forefathers planned for this country. This awakening, this new Lemuria, begins in this time of the precession of the equinoxes. That's going to be explained later. There are a few years left that are enhancing years where much can be accomplished in this awakening. And this awakening is not pulling people out of their belief systems. It's going to enhance the belief system. Do you believe in God? What if God is bigger than you were told? Will you object? Some will. Some will say, I want my God to be as I was told. Dysfunctional. He's going to punish me later. That's my God. And that's only because that's what they learned and that's what they stick to and that's what they're comfortable with. And there's no judgment, dear ones, because there never is a judgment. There's only love. There's only love. Every single one in this room eventually will have a same experience of passing over the veil yet again into a place where you're going to say, don't let any surgeon bring me back. Keep the paddles away from my heart. I want to be here. And the here is not on earth. It's in that multidimensional place you call home, because that's where you belong. And you'll have an awakening even then. An awakening that says, I can hardly wait to get back because there's work to do on this planet, because this planet is starting to awaken to a higher truth, to higher dimensions, where, yes, even your politics will change. It's the way human beings treat each other that is going to start changing. But before it does, all of the dark things are going to creep out of the woodwork or the closet that you always knew were there, but nobody wanted to talk about. The biases, the actions, the systems that have been hidden from you, that collect young girls and have sexual slavery and have farms of babies just for that. Can you imagine anything more unconscionable than that, dear ones? Well, it's under your nose. And it's been going on a long time. And I'll say it again. It's coming forward. And you're going to see it. And some will say, you see where Earth has gone? This is just horrible. Not understanding. It's starting to show itself so you can clean it up. There's a lot of cleaning to do before the awakening will start to take hold in a way that you want, or in a way that makes sense to what you'd like. There are those who still feel, even in the religious systems, that a horn will blow and suddenly overnight, everything will change. That has never been the way it has worked on this planet, dear ones. Sometimes it takes generations to change consciousness or biases. Many times. This is a new normal where there will be an acceleration of change and attitude. Where there will be some you thought would never change, but they have the wherewithal, the maturity of an old soul to look around and say, maybe, I wasn't told a complete truth. Maybe it's a bigger truth, maybe. And what would those bigger truths be? And this is where it gets good. The core truth of the Creator, of how much you are loved or how magnificent you are in the eyes of God, was the original teaching on this planet as given in Lemuria and other places. But Lemuria was extra special because it was isolated. And you couldn't have a human population which was starting to grow come and visit or interfere. And so these truths that were taught rang with purity for thousands of years. It was almost like a launching pad that was Akashic, because a Lemurian who went through that never reincarnated in that Lemuria again. It was a training ground, you might say. A pure one that gave some core truths and processes and energies that got implanted in humanity, but especially those who were firstborn from the star mothers. And the plan? Listen. If you in this civilization had not destroyed yourself by the year 2000, things would start to change. Look at your scriptures. When was that target point when you were going to have trouble? Take a look. 2000. Only 12 years before that which is the 2012 shift, but well within the precession of the equinox 30-year period, 36-year period. That will be explained later. The prophecy of the Maya said the same thing. If humanity had not destroyed itself by that precession of the equinox's centering, 2012, December 21, that things would start to change. They dropped the old calendar and put up a new one because it was the end of an old era, a cycle, 25 to 26,000 year cycle. The indigenous knew this. They were on it. It's begun. The new Lemuria has begun. This is not the first meeting to begin it. It began when so many of you started to ask yourselves, what's going on? Is there more? Could it be that COVID was part of it? Of course it was. We've said this before. What happens when you have to stop everything and ponder your life? What happens when some of you are not allowed to go outside for a while? What happens when families are forced to be together, which is not typical? They're too busy to be together, and suddenly that's all they are, is together. What happens to relationships which are either on the edge or not on the edge, but suddenly you're forced together all the time? What happens to humanity when everything stops? This is a time of reflection. It's a time you will always remember where you were in 2020 when you couldn't go outside, or when the new Lemuria started. Kryon, can you explain a little more about the timing of that, or what it means? The answer is, I would like to. But the way these things always work is that human beings have complete and total free choice. You can make it go as fast or as slow as you wish. How long will the population in this country decide to object and react instead of go into solution? That is unknown. But the objecting and the reaction is warranted in certain ways because it's a frustration. All of those of you who have children have seen the frustration when something didn't change or they wanted something so badly and they would stamp their feet and they'd cry and they would have to be carried around and whatever. That's the frustration in this population right now because they know better. Things can change. And they don't want it to go back into the same old way, dear ones. They want change now. So it will indeed move into a solution cycle instead of a dormant cycle where things simply come back. That's a big change. You got an election soon. I keep saying that because it is also going to be catalytic. No matter what party wins, there's going to be change. So I want you to know something I'm going to say even later when I'm asked to comment in future meetings on politics. I'll say it doesn't matter who or what is going to be in charge or you think is going to be in charge. Don't make up your mind that that's going to work any better than it has before. There's going to be change. From unexpected things, places, personalities, the same kind of changes. I told you years ago when I sat in a similar place and I said, you're going to get a new pope soon. And somebody said, well, why? He's not sick. How could there be that? Well, he's still not sick. Not enough to die and be out of office. He resigned. A wild card, something that nobody expected, changes that no one can expect out of the box in order to allow another one in to start the new Lemuria. Look what he's done. In that which he can do, in the organization which he is in. And you may not be in that organization, but take a look. He's starting to identify dysfunction. He's starting to do the things that I am talking about while I sit in this chair right now. Because he knew that church had to change. It had to come back to a heart-based. It had to come back to things that meant something. God had to get a little bigger. And that is the description. What is the new Lemuria? It is that which is a multidimensional enhancement of your knowledge of who you are in this universe, in this galaxy, on this planet. A sense of the magnificence that is yours today, and the departure completely, for the first time, from belief systems by billions that say you're a victim on the planet, that you don't deserve to have the love of God. That is the beginning of the new Lemuria. And that is what is going on even in this room. As many start to understand and realize these things are bigger than you think. You think you've come to a meeting? It's bigger than that. Because you'll have aha experiences as you go. These are not things that you're going to be trained into. These are revelations for you to remember. And there will be those who see and hear what's being presented in these 2 days and will say, somehow I knew that. I feel that this is accurate and true. Somehow I knew that. Welcome, Starseed, to a start of a remembrance of that which was Lemurian. Were you all in Lemuria? No. You didn't have to be, because that core truth is your lineage as an old soul. If you were in Lemuria, you have it in your Akash because you lived it. If you were not in Lemuria, even if you came to this planet for the first time way after that, I'll tell you something. What is awakening now is the same core truth because it's innate. It's in there, ready for you, old soul. So collect about you your wits, your maturity, your openness, your willingness to see or look or change. It's needed. It's necessary. Be open to the idea that the reality you live in is a very small portion of a much larger reality that is far more real than the 4D, the 4D you live in, the things you can touch and feel. And you think, this is my reality. Don't give me any of that, the stuff that's not there. And I'll tell you, the stuff that's not there, that's more real than this. Again, ask a physicist how many dimensions there are. It's increased yearly as more discoveries are made about how things work. Well, let me tell you how things work. Dimensionality is almost limitless, almost infinite, even in its description and definitions. Even if there were several hundred, how many exactly are you in? 4. Is it possible that you're still seeing in black and white in a color world? And the answer is, oh, yes. That's the beauty of the new Lemuria. Awakening into color and the beginning of a new kind of planet that will gyrate around for a while, and you won't understand what's going on, but some of you will see the trend toward maturity. The trend away from the dysfunction and the horror of some of the things that have been happening on this planet in the old energy for eons. Welcome to the new Lemuria. I'll be back. And so it is.